the prison that opened the door to destiny. Welcome back to the channel. If you're enjoying this journey through the incredible story of Prophet Joseph, don't forget to subscribe to never miss the next chapter of this timeless story. What if prison wasn't the end of Joseph's story, but the very place where Allah began preparing him for greatness? For most people, prison is a place of despair, a place where hope slowly disappears behind cold walls and locked doors. But for Joseph, prison was different. It was another chapter in Allah's perfect plan. The heavy iron gate closed behind him, separating him from the outside world. Once again, Joseph found himself losing something he had never deserved to lose. First, he had been separated from his beloved father by the jealousy of his own brothers. Then he had been sold into slavery despite his innocence. Later, he resisted temptation and remained faithful to Allah, only to be punished for doing what was right. Now he was a prisoner. If anyone had looked only at his circumstances, they would have believed that his life was one long chain of injustice, but Allah was guiding every step. Joseph never allowed hardship to destroy his faith. He did not complain. He did not lose hope. He did not ask why these trials kept coming. Instead, he placed his complete trust in Allah, believing that every test carried wisdom beyond human understanding. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Life inside the prison followed the same routine every day. The stone walls were cold. The narrow windows allowed only small rays of sunlight to enter. The sound of iron doors echoed through the corridors. Many prisoners carried heavy hearts. Some were guilty. Others claimed they had been treated unfairly. Yet one prisoner was unlike all the others. Joseph's peaceful character quickly attracted attention. Even inside prison, he remained honest, humble, patient, and kind. He spoke gently to everyone. He never insulted anyone. He never allowed anger to control him. Instead of spreading fear, he brought comfort. Instead of complaining, he encouraged hope. The guards respected him. The prisoners trusted him. People naturally felt safe in his presence. There was something different about Joseph. His faith gave him a calmness that no prison could take away. Whenever someone felt hopeless, Joseph reminded them that Allah never abandons those who remain patient. Whenever someone feared the future, he encouraged them to trust the wisdom of their Creator. Without realizing it, the prison itself was becoming a place where hearts began changing. Among the prisoners were two young men whose lives would soon become connected to Joseph forever. One had served as the king's cupbearer. His responsibility had been to prepare and serve the king's drink. The other had worked as the royal baker, preparing bread for the palace. For reasons known only to those in authority, both men had been imprisoned. Like everyone else, they observed Joseph carefully. They noticed his honesty. They admired his peaceful nature. They realized he never lied. More importantly, they believed he possessed wisdom unlike anyone they had ever met. Then, one night, both men experienced unusual dreams. The first man dreamed that he was pressing grapes into wine, exactly as he had done while serving the king. The second dreamed that he was carrying baskets of bread upon his head, while birds came down from the sky and ate from them. Neither man understood what the dreams meant. Yet both felt they carried an important message. The following morning, they spoke about their dreams. After discussing them together, they reached the same conclusion. If anyone inside the prison could explain their meaning, it was Joseph. They approached him respectfully. One of them spoke first. "We see that you are one of those who do good." It was more than a compliment. It was a recognition of Joseph's character. His honesty had earned him something greater than freedom. It had earned him trust. Then they asked him, "Tell us the meaning of our dreams." For many people, this would have been the perfect opportunity, simply to provide an answer. But Joseph saw something much greater. He understood that before explaining dreams, he had the opportunity to guide hearts. This was not only about interpreting visions, it was about inviting people toward the truth. Joseph gently smiled. He assured them that, by Allah's permission, he could explain what they had seen. But before revealing the interpretation, he wanted them to understand where this knowledge came from. "It is not my own ability," he explained. "It is a gift from Allah." Joseph then began speaking about the one God. He told them that he had rejected the false beliefs of those who worshipped idols. He explained that he followed the religion of his forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who devoted themselves completely to Allah alone. Then he asked them a question that reached far beyond the walls of the prison. Are many different masters better, or Allah, the One, the Almighty? The prison suddenly became more than a prison. It became a place of dua, a place where an innocent prisoner called others toward faith instead of seeking sympathy for himself. Joseph never allowed his suffering to distract him from his mission. Even while wearing the clothes of a prisoner, he carried the heart of a prophet. Only after inviting them to worship Allah did Joseph prepare to explain the dreams that had brought the two men before him. Neither of them realized that the words they were about to hear would soon become reality, and that one forgotten promise would delay Joseph's freedom for years to come. The prison fell silent as the two men waited anxiously for Joseph to speak. They had come seeking the meaning of their dreams, but before answering them, Joseph had guided their hearts toward the worship of Allah alone. Now it was time to reveal what Allah had taught him. Joseph looked first at the man who had once served the king as his cupbearer. With calm confidence, he said, "As for you, you will return to your position and once again serve your king his drink." A smile of hope appeared on the man's face. His fear slowly faded as he realized that his imprisonment would soon come to an end. Then Joseph turned to the second prisoner. His expression became more serious. "As for you," he said gently, "you will be executed, and the birds will eat from your head." The room became silent. The baker could hardly believe what he had heard. Perhaps both men wondered if the interpretation could still change. Perhaps they hoped it was only one possible outcome, but Joseph spoke with certainty. "The matter has already been decreed concerning that about which you both inquire." These were not guesses. They were not clever predictions. They were knowledge granted by Allah alone. Days passed. Then the moment of truth arrived. Exactly as Joseph had explained, the first prisoner was released from prison and restored to his former position as the king's cupbearer. The second prisoner's fate unfolded exactly as Joseph had foretold. Once again, Allah had shown the truthfulness of his prophet. Before the cupbearer left the prison, Joseph made one simple request. "When you return to your king, remember me. Tell him about my case. Tell him that I have been imprisoned unjustly." The man sincerely agreed. He promised he would not forget. For Joseph, this seemed like the first small door toward freedom after years of injustice. But Allah's plan was greater than Joseph could yet see. When the cupbearer returned to the royal palace, life quickly became busy again. He resumed his duties. He stood once more before the king. The comfort of freedom replaced the hardship of prison. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. The promise he had made to Joseph slowly disappeared from his memory. He forgot. Joseph remained behind the prison walls. From a human perspective, it seemed like another disappointment, another closed door, another unanswered hope. Yet Allah never forgets. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually divine preparation. Had Joseph been released at that moment, he might have left prison as an ordinary man whose innocence was finally recognized. But Allah had prepared something far greater. He was preparing Joseph to leave prison with honor, wisdom, and authority at exactly the right time. Years passed inside the prison. Still, Joseph never lost hope. He continued helping others. He continued worshiping Allah. He continued showing kindness to everyone around him. His circumstances never changed his character. His faith remained stronger than his chains. Then, on a night unlike any other, something happened inside the royal palace. The king of Egypt awoke from a strange and deeply troubling dream. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. 7 healthy cows were being eaten by 7 thin and starving cows. Then he saw 7 green ears of grain standing beside 7 dry and withered ones. The dream disturbed him so much that he immediately gathered his advisors, priests, and wise men. He demanded an explanation, but no one could answer. The greatest minds in the kingdom stood speechless before the king. Then, a forgotten memory suddenly returned. The king's cupbearer froze. He remembered the young man in prison, the man who had interpreted his dream perfectly years before. The promise he had failed to keep came rushing back into his mind. For the first time since leaving prison, he remembered Joseph. He stepped forward and said, "I can tell you who can explain this dream." At that moment, without realizing it, the cupbearer became the instrument through which Allah's promise to Joseph would finally begin to unfold. The prison that had seemed like the end of Joseph's story was about to become the place where his destiny changed forever. But how would Joseph interpret the king's mysterious dream? Would this finally lead to his freedom? And could an innocent prisoner truly rise to become one of the most powerful men in Egypt? The answers to those extraordinary questions await us in episode 7, where Allah's perfect plan begins to unfold before the eyes of an entire nation.